We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara Aleph and Meseches Shevuos. This is Shevuos Daf 17a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing the halach in the Mishnah that if a person becomes tamei in the azara of the Beis Hamikdash, so then he only has to bring the carbon olive yored. If he stays there the amount of time that it takes to bow, that's called shehiyah. And so on the previous summit, Rava asked, what about in a situation of malchus, meaning to say, let's say a person again became tamei in the azara of the Beis Hamikdash, and then he's warned that he needs to leave, and he does leave, but he stays there a little. He doesn't stay there the amount of time it takes to bow, but he stays there, he delays a tiny amount, and then he leaves. So is he going to get malchus, or do we say he only gets malchus if he stays again that amount of time that it takes to bow? And the Gemara here continues the question again, Odilmor, maybe, bifnim gemiri shehiyah, maybe any time the person becomes tamei in the azara, there's a halach of shehiyah. Lo shna l'carbon, v'lo shna l'malchus. It doesn't matter, carbon or malchus, the halach of shehiyah applies. That's the question, does it apply in terms of malchus? And the Gemara says, teku. The Gemara leaves that as a question. And Rashi explains, Odilma bifnim gemiri shehiyah, or maybe we say that when he becomes tamei in the Beis Hamikdash, betuma she'ira lo b'soch azara, when the tuma happened to him in the azara, again there's a halach of shehiyah, maybe it doesn't matter if it's carbon or malchus. And the Gemara continues, boy, Rava asks, Tola atzmo ba'avir azara ma, what if he hangs himself, he suspends himself in the airspace of the azara, and he delays there for that amount of time? Again, is that going to be a situation where the person is going to be liable? Ki gemiri shehiyah debas hishtachava. Maybe when we have the tradition that there has to be, he has to stay there for a certain amount of time, he has to stay there in a way that he's able to bow. But delav bas hishtachava, but let's say he stays there in a way where he's not able to bow, he's suspended in the airspace, so lo gemiri, so then maybe we did not learn this halach of shehiyah. Odilmar, maybe bifnim shehiyah gemiri, anytime that the person is inside, again he becomes tamei inside the azara, there's a halach of shehiyah. Lo shna debas hishtachava, doesn't matter if he's able to bow, v'lo shna delav bas hishtachava, it doesn't matter if he's not able to bow. And again the Gemara says teku, the Gemara leaves that as a question. And Rashi explains, Tola atzmo ba'avir, again he suspends himself in the airspace of the azara, kideshi, and here again the case is where he actually did it the amount of time that it takes to bow, but the question is, since he wasn't able to bow in the fashion that he is delaying in the azara, so is he liable or not? And again the Gemara said teku, the Gemara left that as a question. And the Gemara continues, boy, Ravashi asked the following question, Timei atzmo b'mezid ma'u, let's say the person made himself tamei on purpose, so ba'ones gemiri shehiyah, is this halacha of shehiyah, is it only if it happened by accident, but b'mezid lo gemiri shehiyah, but if it was on purpose, there's no halacha of shehiyah? Again, Odilmor, maybe b'fnim gemiri shehiyah, there's a halacha of shehiyah, anytime the person becomes tamei in the azara, lo shna ba'ones, v'lo shna b'mezid, it doesn't matter if it's by accident or on purpose. And the Gemara says teku again, the Gemara leaves that as a question. And Rashi explains, Timei atzmo b'mezid, he makes himself tamei b'mezid, v'im timsa lomar tzarech shehiyah l'malchus. The point over here is, if you're going to say that shehiyah is required for malchus betumas ones u'shehiyas mezid, in a case that we asked above, let's say the person became tamei by accident, but then he stayed there on purpose. So what about tumas mezid? What if he became tamei on purpose? Mi boy shehiyah olo, does the person need shehiyah in order to be liable or not? And again, the Gemara said teku, the Gemara left that as a question. And the Gemara continues, boy, Ravashi asks the following question, Nazir bekever, let's say you have a Nazir, and he's in the cemetery, boy, shehiyah l'malchus, o eino tzarech, does he need shehiyah in order to get malchus or not? Bifnim gemiri shehiyah, is it that there's a tradition that shehiyah is needed inside, again, when the person becomes tamei in the azara, but b'achutz lo gemiri shehiyah, but if he's outside, again, in this situation of, let's say, a Nazir, there is no halacha of shehiyah. Odilmar, maybe ba'ones gemiri shehiyah lo shna b'fnim v'lo shna b'chutz. Maybe the halacha is anytime it happens by accident, there's a halacha of shehiyah. It doesn't matter if it's inside or outside. Teku, and the Gemara leaves that as a question. And Rashi explains, Nazir bekever, the case is as follows, Nazir shenitma ba'ones, the Nazir here became tamei by accident, besoch beis hakvaros, while he was in the cemetery, dumya denitma ba'azara. This is similar, we're giving a case that's similar to a case of someone becoming tamei in the azara, shelo nischaye b'chnisaso. The point over here is, in the case of the azara, again, he didn't enter the azara when he was tamei, and what would be the equivalent case by Nazir? Kagon shenichnas lebeis hakvaros b'sheda tevo migdal. Let's say he entered the beis hakvaros, the cemetery, in some kind of a wagon, some kind of an enclosed area where he didn't become tamei. And then his friend comes and he opens up the roof of this oel, and so now he suddenly becomes tamei in the airspace of the beis hakvaros. So he enters enclosed in something where he does not become tamei, but then suddenly he becomes tamei. And now v'hisrubo, so now they give him a warning. They tell him he has to leave. V'lo yatz, he doesn't leave. But even though he delayed, but he didn't delay so long, the amount of time that it takes to bow. So the question is, again, is he liable to malchus in this case when he did delay, but he didn't do it for that shear of hishtachava? Tzarech shia lamalchus o lo, does he need shia in terms of getting malchus or not? A nazir is not allowed to become tameh. Carbon lo shayach hacha klal. Now Rashi notes, carbon over here is not relevant. She'ein kares bin nazir shenitma. First of all, when a nazir becomes tameh, he doesn't get kares, so you bring a carbon by mistake in a situation where it would be kares on purpose. The carbon nazir tameh lava avon tumok asi. And then Rashi also notes there is a carbon for a nazir who's tameh, but that's not brought because of the sin of becoming tameh. El lemechel ale naziras tar. That's actually just so that it can be chal upon him. He can start the naziras impurity. Keshar mechusrei kapara, like other situations of mechusrei kapara that they need to bring karbanos in terms of purification. Uve inyan zem mefura shehiyah zu b'Meseches nazir. That's how this is explained in Meseches nazir. And so then again, the Gemara said b'fnim gemiri shehiyah. Maybe the din of shehiyah is only b'tomas azara. That's only in a situation of tum in the azara, the shaycha b'hishtach avoya, because there you can talk about bowing. There's no concept of bowing in the cemetery. Or no, again, maybe in a situation of ones, there is a halacha of shia would apply to nazir as well. And again, the Gemara left that as a question. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Bolo ba'arucha chayev. Again, let's say the person is tameh in the azara of the Beis HaMikdash and he takes the long way to exit the azara, so then he's liable, but biksara pater. But if he takes the shortest route out, so then he's pater, then he is exempt. And the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Kitsara sha'amru. When we say that he has to take the shortest route, afilu okev b'tzad godel, even if it's heel to toe, meaning even if he's going in the slowest way possible out of the shortest route, but as long as he's not delaying, so he's not going to be chayev, he's going to be exempt in such a situation. V'afilu kol hayom kulo, even if it takes him the whole day to leave, but the fact is if he's not delaying, if he's always exiting along the shortest route, then he is fine. Rashi explains, afilu kol hayom kulo shah b'halichaso, even if he delays as he's walking, meaning shayaholech v'yotze benachas, meaning he's constantly walking, but at a very slow pace, pater, he is going to be pater in that situation because he did take the shortest route out. And the Gemara continues, Boy Rava asks, Shehios ma'u sheyitzdarfu. What if there are certain delays, small delays, do they join together in order to make the delay again of the amount of time that it takes to bow? So the person keeps stopping a little bit. Do we join each one of those together and say that the person is liable? Rashi explains, Ma'u sheyitzdarfu hayayotze b'ktsara. He's leaving in the shortest possible route. V'shah ma'at, he delays a little. V'chazar v'halach derech yitziyaso, and then he continues walking towards the exit. V'shah ma'at, he delays again a little. Ma'u sheyitzdarfu l'chashir. Does that add up to the shear, again, the shear of hishtachava, of bowing, and then the person would be liable? And the Gemara says, V'tifshot le mididei. Well, why doesn't he answer from what he said? Rashi explains, Tifshot le mididei, meaning de lo mitzdarfi. He should say that it doesn't join together. Da'yu hu da'amar afilo kol hayom kulo. Didn't Rava just say above, even if it takes him the whole day to leave, we say that he's still going to be exempt. And so over here also, if you have a bunch of little delays, but no one delay is long enough, it would seem that the person is going to be exempt. And the Gemara continues in answer to that, Hasam over there, b'delosha, when Rava said it could take all day, but there was no delay whatsoever. In other words, what was happening was he was just walking continuously very slowly. Here the question is, what if there were some delays? Do we add those delays together? And Rashi explains, Hasam b'delo shah below hilach klal. There was no delay. There was no moment where he wasn't walking at all. Again, here the question is where he stopped walking for some moments. Are we mitzdaref those together? And the Gemara continues, Boy minei Abaya me Rabba. Abaya asks Rabba the following question. Bolo barucha, let's say he takes the long way out, but shir kitzara, but he does it in the same amount of time it would have taken if he would have taken the shortest way out, meaning essentially he runs out, but the longer way. So ma, what's the halacha in that situation? Shir gemiri. So do we say that it's really the amount of time that is what is important? V'chi bolo barucha shir kitzara patern. So therefore, even though he took the longer way out, but since it took the amount of time that it would have taken the shortest way out, so then we would say pater, he's exempt. Or maybe dafka gemiri barucha chayiv b'ksara pater. Maybe we specifically are saying that the long way out is chayiv and the short way out is pater. It doesn't matter if he's running out or walking out. The point over here is that he cannot take the longer way out. And so the Gemara continues, Amar Lei said back to him, Lo nitna arucha lihidachos etzlo. And Rashi explains, Lo nitna arucha lihidachos etzlo lahatir afilo b'merutza, meaning to say the long way is not something that now we're going to allow him to do that if he's running. That's not why the long way, it wasn't given to him that he can go the long way in order to also be exempt in that fashion. He's supposed to not go the long way, and so therefore even if he runs out and takes the longer way out, he is going to be liable. But the Gemara continues and asks, Maskef lo Rabbi Zeir. Rabbi Zeir asks on this as follows: Ela dekaimelon, but what about that which we have established, that tamei sheshimesh b'misa? Let's say you have a kohen who's tamei, and he serves in the Azara, he serves in the Beis Hamikdash. So the halacha is he gets misa b'dei shamayim. Now again, as we said, a person even who is tamei in the Beis Hamikdash and stays there for a certain amount of time, so there already the person is going to be liable to kares. So what situation are we talking about where there's misa b'dei shamayim? As the Gemara now continues and asks, how do you even have a situation where the person is going to get misa b'dei shamayim because he served in the Azara when he was tamei, but he's already going to get kares because he stayed there for that amount of time? Idelosha, if he didn't stay there for the amount of time, so hechiyav avoda, how was it possible that he did it in avoda in the Beis Hamikdash? That doesn't make sense. And and if he did stay there for the amount of time, so bar karesu, so then he gets kares for being in the Azara when he's tamei, so it shouldn't make a difference that he served or not. And Rabbi Zeira continues and explains the question, Yamrid Bishlam, if you will say correctly that Shiura Gemiri, that the main thing over here is how much time it takes to get out of the Azara, so then actually we could come up with a scenario where the person would not get kares, but he's going to get misa b'dei shamayim for serving. Mashkachas lo, you could find it as follows: the onis nafshe b'ktsara of avoda, that what he did was he forced himself in the shortest route going out. What he did was he ran out, he went very quickly, and so therefore he left, and he really wasn't there the amount of time to be liable to kares, but he quickly was able to do the avoda, and by doing the avoda he gets misa b'dei shamayim. Meaning to say, Rabbi Zeira is arguing, if you're going to say it goes by the amount of time and that a person can hurry his way out, then you can come up with a scenario. And Rashi explains, the kaimelon b'Sanhedrin be'elohein hanisraf, and we've established in Sanhedrin, kohen tamei shashimesh ba'azara b'misa b'dei shamayim, that again, if a kohen is tamei and he serves in the Azara, the punishment is misa b'dei shamayim. Hechi mashkachas lo de'ein ba'kares, how are you going to have a situation where he's not going to have kares? He's already going to have kares. What does he need misa b'dei shamayim for? Al karchach b'nitma be'azarahu d'mashkachas. It has to be, first of all, that the case is that he became tamei in the Azara. De'i b'nitma b'chutz, because if he became tamei outside the Azara, v'nichnas, and then he entered the Azara tamei, echayiv le'kares b'chnisaso. So then already he's going to get kares just by entering. So again, there's no need to talk about misa b'dei shamayim when you have the punishment of kares, which is more severe. And ilosha b'avodaso kedei hishtachavoy. Now, if he didn't stay there the amount of time to bow, so hechi avid avoda. So how was he even able to do an avoda? Ezu avoda ketana tayasi b'pachas mechdei sheyas hishtachavo. What kind of small avoda can be done in less than that amount of time, the amount of time it takes to bow? And Rashi continues, Yamrid b'shlama b'chol shiuri demasnisin. If you're going to say that by all of the shiurim of our Mishnah, bein b'shia, bein b'yatzias arucha, shiura gemiri, whether again the person is staying, whether the person is leaving the long way, the important thing is the amount of time. L'chiyav, that's what's important for liability. Kigon shir shehia b'yatzias kitzara, or shir yatzias arucha below shia. Again, whatever the case is, whether the person is leaving the short way but he stays a certain amount of time, whether he's leaving the long way but he doesn't stay, but again it takes a certain amount of time. So mashkachas l'shia below chiyav kares, then you could have a situation where the person stays and he actually does the avoda but doesn't get kares. Kagon do onis nafshe b'kitzara, meaning to say, let's say he takes the short route but he goes very quickly out the short route. La'achar shashimesh, after he serves v'shah b'shimusho kedei shehiyah, and again he stays enough time that it would have been a liability if he would have left without running. Yatzalo b'kitzara, but then he leaves the shortest route v'yonas asmo b'merutza, and he forces himself to run. At shalosha shir gvaso mishenitma shir shehiyah v'yatzias kitzara. And so by the time he leaves, it ends up not adding up to the amount of time where if he would have went with a normal way of walking, so then already it would have been a delay, but now he runs out. So again, you can have a scenario where what the person does is, he's a Kohen, he becomes tamei in the Azara, he serves, he does the Avoda, and then he runs out the short way, so he's never there long enough to create that liability of kares. That would make sense in that situation, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yomi Gemara Amud Beis.